you check the children? Show a little match sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is what
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Long days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime Fuego, and if it please you, join myself and the founder of the horror show feast, none other than...
I'm Cecil Laird.
And yes, for a little bit of palaver on not technically a hail to Stephen King, but definitely a book that is finally seeing adaptation, The Long Walk. And this is one that for all of those episodes back when it was on the horror show, and then when Hale is occasionally popping up on in Fuegotainment here or there whenever time allows, this is one that, dude, people had been clamoring for decades. I mean, the book was released in 1979 under the pseudonym of Richard Bachman.
So this was an actual full book, not a short story.
No, it's kind of more on the novella side of things, because it's not like these super ginormous status novels. It's like a few hundred pages. I've read it 3 or 4 times, but it's been maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years since my previous reading of it, which was for like maybe an anniversary or something. But yeah, man, it's not one of his paperweight doorstopper kind of books, but it's not a short. It's a few hundred pages, and it's quite well developed despite its simple concept. But there have been numerous people who were trying to get this made over the years, and I want to say Romero was trying to make it at one point. Andrea Vidal, who did, Autopsy of Jane Doe, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I mean, pretty, noteworthy genre guy in his own right. I know he was trying to make it at one point, and that fizzled out. But finally, in the hands of J.T. Molnar, who was the guy behind Strange Darling, he wrote the screenplay for this, adapted the King book, and then Francis Lawrence, the guy who did all the Hunger Games movies. I mean, so this definitely felt like it was in the wheelhouse of some very capable, seasoned people. And, I know my overall thoughts. My anticipation was actually pretty high for this one. Trailers looked great, but since I've read this a number of times, and I'm sure that you haven't read the book at least, but you were fairly stoked about the source, about like trailers and stuff that you had seen. What were your overall thoughts, dude?
So yeah, having not read the book, obviously, and not even really knowing much about it other than what I saw in the trailer once we, reacted to it and stuff, I was like, ooh, what an interesting idea. And here's the thing about it. What I anticipated, being someone that's very familiar with films and like knowing kind of what you'd have to do to sustain this idea for the length of an entire full-length feature, it did exactly what I thought it was going to do. I didn't know who was going to do what along the way, but I was like, okay, this is going to happen. This is something like this is going to happen at one point. This is going to happen at one point. And like all of that stuff did kind of happen. I didn't know the exact details of how it was going to happen and stuff, but it was a little bit on the sort of more predictable side, just because there's a limited amount of things that can really happen with such a kind of narrow story. However,
and a concept that has an inevitability to it.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. We know how it's got. It's a Titanic of a story, right? You know the ship's going to sink at the end. It's just a matter of how is it all going to happen and who's going to be around by that point. And so, but even so, I think it was brilliantly done. I think it was really fantastic. I cared a lot more about our 2 leads than I thought I would, It's not that I didn't think I would, it's just that I didn't know how it was going to play out exactly, but they had these 2 characters bond so much, and it makes me like the actor that played the dude with the scar.
David Johnson. Yeah,
David Johnson.
He was in Romulus.
That's what I was going to say. Like, this performance makes me appreciate his performance in Romulus so much more, somehow. And I thought he was phenomenal. He was electric in this, just being like kind of the what one would hope everyone would aspire to be in such a situation. You know what I mean? Level-headed. Calm, collected, cheerleader, crutch of a support system when necessary, so I was really impressed with the characterization that we got in the film, which, again, a Stephen King property, not surprising. Characterizations are one of his specialties. The only thing I was like, the most Stephen King neon sign in the whole movie is like there's a Henry Bowers character, like and I'm like, oh, that's Henry Bowers right there, like it's like okay.
For Henry Bowers though, yeah, because this is one that he started writing. Well, he was like finishing high school when he came up with the idea, and then he started writing it his freshman year when he was 19 years old and everything.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so this was like when I read the book and when I discussed it with like Mike Kearns from Mike's Book Reviews, he had never read this book despite being a big constant reader. He read it maybe a year or two ago, something like that, around the same time that I revisited it, and he was like, "Dude, I can see where the seeds for Stand By Me and for it and for the camaraderie amongst these younger men and adolescents and all that different stuff, and that this was kind of a dry run for that, including the kind of villainous presence as you mentioned too with the Bowers kind of stand-in."
Right.
So.
Yeah, and so like overall, I dug the hell out of it. I think the acting was unbelievable. I think the story was interesting and truly engaging the whole way through. Again, you know what has to happen. It's just a matter of how it has to happen. And like I was entertained and engaged the whole way through. And like I wouldn't say I was ever shocked, because like everything that happened, I was like, yeah, okay, it's about time for that to happen, kind of thing. But it didn't diminish my enjoyment at all. I was like, okay, this is great. They and I'm a fan of the execution of the Hunger Games stuff more than the story of the Hunger Games stuff. So, this director definitely knew what he was doing, and I liked the framing of everything. How he did a really great job of having a dude with a gun looming in the background in almost every shot.
Yeah.
So, like, I really appreciated how the film was put together. The acting was phenomenal. The effects were really great. Outside of the fact that you kind of know what has to happen, it's just a matter of waiting for how. If you can count that as a minor detractor, fine. But otherwise, I mean, this is easily a 4.5 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, right there with you, dude. And this is one that, I had the burden of expectation, as I mentioned at the beginning of this review, dude, because not only do I love the source material, but the trailers looked like they were capturing the vibe of it very well. And I mean, the biggest thing that gave me hope for it was the fact that they decided to go R-rated, because when Andrea Verdal was developing this, he was the last director that was trying to get it off the ground a few years ago. Word is it was PG-13. It was very and I could see how they could defang and declaw this story, have a lot of the violence be just off screen, in the background and not in focus, which they did from time to time as well. But I like this went with the salty language, which is in the novel. It went with the violence, like. Early on in the movie, they make it pretty clear, the sheer stakes of what these kids are dealing with, which I really appreciated. And that's when the title card hit, and you're like, okay, now we're cooking with fire and all that. So yeah, man, and really the biggest thing for me is that I feel like, as far as wrapping up my overall thoughts, this could have sank or swim based on the ensemble of actors that they put together for this, and all these young men were great. And they were all, even the minor ones, very nuanced with just their sort of mentality about things, how they were coping. I mean, Ben Wang, as he was most recently in that
He's the new Karate Kid, right?
Yeah, dude, and he was great in that too. And he just seeing him do something much less subdued in this, and with the snark, I mean, he was almost like the Richie, trash mouth, kind of character too. So you can see where King was kind of, when he was initially writing this, putting together these sort of archetypes that he was eventually going to develop into something bigger later on with it, and even before that, The Body. So I was very happy that we got some brutality in this, that they didn't really restrain compared to the source material. Acting from everybody, and Garrity, our lead character, Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, rest peace that Hoffman, actor Cooper Hoffman, I believe his name.
Wait, who is that? Which one did he play?
He was the lead. He was Garrity.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
fair.
That's Philip Seymour's son.
He was great, yeah.
He was great, too, yeah. I'd only seen him in something called Licorice Pizza, which was like a Paul Thomas Anderson drama, but he was good in this, man. I mean, all of the actors, even the ones that didn't get as much dialogue and stream time, all when they had their moment to shine, left their imprint. And even Mark Hamill, hamming it up a little bit as the villain, you could tell he's having fun. And yeah, I was just very impressed with this. Lived up to expectation, and that doesn't always happen.
Well, that's my first immediate question for you as the King lover. Like, how did we do? Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as accuracy of portrayal of the story, where would you set it?
Aside from, and this is non-spoiler,
Right.
Aside from altering the ending, which I kind of had a feeling they were going to do,
Okay.
With any specifics, this was about as faithful as you can get. Now, there were certain characters that were like kind of combined into one character, because there's a larger, because in the source material, I believe it's 100 kids instead of 50 kids, one representing each state. I believe in the original, it was 2 per state, something like that. But I mean, as far as accuracy, hitting some of the beats, like a character getting a nosebleed or some backstory about another character's father, I mean, it was all just very accurate and did not, I mean, just minor tinkering here and there, but very faithfully done. And even more so, just the recreation of the whole, one for all for one, and all that. I mean, definitely taking inspiration from the Vietnam War and just the friendships that were forged in, crazy dire times that may not last very long at all, because, there's death waiting for everybody over in that situation too. So yeah, man, it was very faithful, and I appreciated that. If they had defanged and declawed at PG-13 this shit, I would have been very upset. So.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So again, I don't know if this review is gonna have to be the longest, because there's not a ton to break down story wise. I mean, the story is it's in a post-war United States, there's a contest held annually where 50 young men generally, are chosen to do this long walk where if you drop below 3 miles per hour, you get your ticket punched, so to speak. And the last person alive gets a cash prize and a single wish. So it's a little Twisted Metal. I wouldn't be surprised if Twisted Metal got that originally from this idea. But yeah, and it did end exactly how I anticipated it, given the circumstances of how the third act played out. I was like, as soon as, well, I won't say, but yeah, I dug the ending. But yeah, so that's it. That's the long and short of the story. I mean, a group of 4 in particular sort of form this bond. And they're sort of our main characters amongst the group. Other characters do get, a little bit of shine, and, you have to care a little bit about these other people that are getting offed throughout the entire movie. So, yeah, I mean, that's truly the long and short of the story. And it's like, who's going to last and under what circumstances? And if so, and once that happens, what are they going to wish for? So it's a very concise. What I love about this, and what I love about a lot of Stephen King stories, is that they're very dialed in. They're very narrow focused. Even if broader scope, they're very narrowly focused. And so I think this was a perfect example of that. Like, for instance, this is an event that is broadcast across the country, apparently, not unlike the Hunger Games or
even the Running Man,
Yeah,
this year.
Exactly.
Yeah, also another Bachman book. Yeah,
exactly. But give this movie to Devlin and Emmerich, and they are cutting back and forth to audiences and government and like all this stuff going on that aren't this main crew. This movie stays with the walkers the entire time. It doesn't veer away from it, and I feel like that personal telling of the story really tremendously helped dial me into the emotions of everything as it went. Like, I didn't get so emotional that I like cried at any point, but I was very.
I teared up a little in the third act with one character in particular, talking about friendships.
I know which one you're talking about, and that I did. Yeah, I think I might have welled up. I don't think anything.
Little misty eye.
Yeah, I got welled up though. And the just don't watch kind of thing was really got me good. Yeah. So you know what? I take it back. You're right. I think I did I welled up for sure, and I think I did have to wipe away the corners at that point. So I'll take it back. Yeah, it did make me emotional enough to tear up. So that's considering how short it ended up being. Like, it really was only like an hour 40, an hour 45, right? Something like that.
I think an hour 40. Yeah.
Yeah. Lean and Mean.
We didn't even watch credits at the end. They just cut right to Monty talking. So.
Yeah. Lean and Mean, and very effective, and characters that you care about. And I dug the shit out of it, honestly.
Yeah, and I have to echo your sentiments about how I like the way they framed it with just following the kids pretty much these young men the entire time, because there's an acknowledgement of the cameras and you see them very briefly, but that was it. They were just like, it was almost like a framing device that you're aware is there, but they never really go back to it at all. It's, as you mentioned, the rifles being in every shot, just the impending doom all around them. And
they only ever show a camera lens once.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
In the movie. Yeah, where the kid was given the exposition. And so, I mean, this really, back to the whole sink or swim thing, since it's so character driven, and that's what makes you actually just feel and emote for this situation and sympathize, even with I even sympathize a little bit with the shit characters, man. Two in particular, the kid who was in Spontaneous, who, Berkovich, I want to say his name was.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one who has an incident with another kid that he's kind of tormenting at one point. Even for him, you kind of these aren't just like
Bowersovich.
Black and white. Yeah, but they're not like one note black and white sort of characters.
Right.
They are well developed shades of gray, and that's where Molnar's script did such a great job of bringing this very deep characterization that King is so just heralded for to this script, and the fact that. Maybe some people may be like, there's not enough, shooting or tanks running over people or whatever, but the fact that the dialogue was so engaging, the fact that they were discussing the futile nature of this competition, like, talking about society. I was surprised that they ended up going with, it wasn't like modern, you could tell by the cars. And I guess we'll get to that when we talk about production design and effects and whatnot. But just the way that they wrote it, it was like, dystopian, but yet dystopian from like a 60s 70s perspective. Like, it would have been, I don't know, I mean, it was a great script, and I shouldn't be surprised, coming from the dude who wrote Strange Darling, that he did such a great with the dialogue, which is another film that's relatively dialogue heavy as well. So
and I was caught off guard by one of the biggest adversaries of the film being a simple hill. I thought that was
which is in the book too.
Well done.
Weed out the week, man.
Jesus Christ. And it's so ominous going into the first night where, Ham was like, not all of you are going to make it to dawn. Kind of, it's like, Jesus. So, okay, let's get into the filmmaking and the production design and everything. I mean, they did an incredible job of creating a world, and yet you're only viewing it from inside this sort of greenhouse. Like, you see everything around them as they go, but you don't ever actually travel to any of these other places. You just see like the remnants of this post-war society, and you see, that anyone that shows up to kind of watch people pass by, they're not the most opulent of circumstances. They generally look pretty podunk, pretty low income kind of situation. So they did a good job of illustrating the world without ever leaving the group, from strictly a highway. So the ability for the filmmakers to do that, I think, is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, and it was also, even though they're not in a car, it is a road movie, essentially, because they see so many different locales, and the way they juxtapose that degradation that you mentioned with other scenes of, like, beautiful fields of sunflowers and things of that nature. It's like, there's beauty all around us, but yet there's danger all around us, too. I mean, it was a real interesting balance in that regard, and, they filmed in Canada. The original story, if I remember, takes place, they start on the Canada-Maine border, being Stephen King, Maine, and then they're walking down through New England towards like Massachusetts and everything. But gorgeous scenery where they filmed it. The rain effects all looked very convincing and cool when we got them too. I love those sort of ominous scenes where just people are getting drenched and still having this very profound dialogue amongst each other. When we got to, when we got some effects, when we got some gore, granted, there's going to be digital blood with these sort of gunshot situations and whatnot, but it didn't look as CG as we've seen in a lot of other movies where it sticks out like a sore thumb. Because I mean, these are a lot of quick like headshots to people and things like that. So it was brutally orchestrated and depicted. I mean that opening kill where you know what's going on, before the title card. I was like, oh, they are going for this. They are gonna embrace the R rating. So
Yeah.
happy about that.
And then I didn't notice much score. I'm sure
There
it
was
was
a little
there.
bit in the third act that really stuck out to me when the drama was really amplifying as they had shrunk down to such a small number of guys, and it was like kind of this soft piano sort of bit. I know one of the guys from the Lumineers was the one who did the score for it, but in the early half of the movie, it was definitely not as noticeable. I mean, they're singing that Clementine song at one point, which I believe is in the book if I remember correctly. So that was.
And there's one song that plays over a speaker, but yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. But
So yeah, I mean, other production comments, like I think.
not as much. I mean, there's a scene with the tank that reminded me of All Quiet on the Western Front, the recent version of it, which was, it was something. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, between the period appropriate cars, the little bit of these degraded towns and stuff that we get to go through. I mean, the old school kind of tanks that they were using. I mean, it did feel very much what the future would be perceived as when King wrote it in the late '60s and '70s. So yeah.
Now, effects wise, I think I think everything was great. There was definitely a lot of CG augmentation at times, and just flat out CG effects in lieu of makeup effects. But it never took me out of it. Like I just they have clear limitations based on what they're trying to accomplish in a single frame. But yeah, I feel like all of that was done incredibly well. Also, even there's a bit more CG runny shit than I would have liked, but there's overall the effects I thought were top notch.
Yeah, a lot of headshots, a lot of I mean, even when we had like the practicality of the blood and stuff, where like guys get shot and it's just all the blood oozing out of their mouth and stuff like that. When we actually did get some practical looking stuff, because it's not like a gory movie per se, aside from the bit at the beginning and then the bit with the tank that I keep alluding to, which was one of my favorite kind of shock and awe sort of parts. But yeah, I mean, it balanced it well, even though I could tell, as I was saying this a moment ago, that a lot of digital blood and whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't. Especially in some of the darker scenes when guys are getting shot up and you see a little blood spray when they're getting like capped in the head or whatever. It's still it didn't look as, whether it was lighting or just not being too gratuitous with it. It didn't take me out at all.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think that this movie is very worth your time to go see. I don't think you need to necessarily see it like opening weekend, because there's not, the crowd was mostly
to go see this opening weekend.
No, I mean, you can. I'm just saying that it's not one of those where like crowd reaction plays a big factor, because everyone's so dialed in, they're pretty silent, so I don't think...
not an immense amount to spoil either, really. I mean, so
yeah, exactly. So I don't know that you need to rush out and see it immediately. I do think supporting films in theaters that are of this quality is good. However, it's definitely not one that I would consider as necessary of the big screen treatment, like a lot of the big budget action movies and shit that take a lot more advantage of it. It's not to say it doesn't take advantage of the big screen. It certainly does, and the shot choices are beautiful for sure, but it's less like, I don't think it's one of those kind of movies where watching it at home versus watching it in a theater isn't going to make a tremendous difference, because there's not so much on screen that a bigger screen would help me see it all. It's very keenly focused in on the subject matter that it's telling you. So yeah, I don't know. It's a very long way of saying I don't know if you necessarily need to run to the theater, but if you want to support it, if you want to support good films, then do.
Yeah, and that's where, I mean, I will concede to you that yes, because it is such a personal kind of movie with, the fact that, it is very character driven, very dialogue driven and stuff like that. I mean, I just want to see this be successful. The only thing it's really playing against next weekend when it comes out is Spinal Tap 2.
Oh,
So,
jeez.
there's nothing that all the other genre stuff, unless Conjuring carries over and has a strong second weekend. I'm just hopeful that this is a success and finds an audience because I feel like it's very worthy of it.
Yeah.
Although I will agree with you that it's not ultimate. Like if this had gone to a streamer, I would have been sad, but I would have understood if it was on Prime or Hulu or Netflix or something. But I'm happy that it's getting the big screen treatment because I love the story and I was really impressed with the film and I hope it finds an audience because I think it's deserving of it.
Yeah,
So.
I agree. So yeah, you want to go ahead and wrap her up?
Yeah, guys. So, I guess that's going to be the end of the proceedings. Grande gracias to Cecil for having this palaver with me and all of that. I won't do the whole full-winded thing. I'll just say until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more with the next Stephen King adaptation, which is The Running Man coming out in November. Hasta luego, cinemigos. Constant readers, viewers alike say thank you. Hope that you have been well met by myself and Cecil in this non-spoiler discussion and that we share more of this palaver sooner rather than later. And gracias again, brother. And until next time, Fright fans, remember,
Stay scared. And thank
read
you to our
Stephen King.
patrons. Thank you to our patrons.
Yes, sorry. So, thank you to the patrons and read Stephen King. Check out The Long Walk. It's a Richard Bachman book, but you can get it in its solo form.
All right. Take care, guys.